Well, hello whiskey neighbors, John, your whiskey neighbor here, and today I'd like to talk to you about the first in the Glenfiddich experimental series, and that would be their IPA experiment. Thanks for joining me. For regulars on the channel, as I said, it's been about 2 weeks since I've been able to sit down for a review, and I'm working through bottles that are open that I can talk about before I crack open some new ones for the fall lineup. So this one, Glenfiddich IPA Experiment, a little bit about it. It came out quite a while ago. I think it was in 2016, so that's a couple of years ago now, but really marked the first of, I think they're at 4 now. Right, there's the Glenfiddich IPA Experiment, that's what we're looking at today, and then there's the XX or 20, the experiment from letting people pick 20 casks. Is that right? Yeah, and then the one that's finished in Canadian ice wine casks. Anyways, I haven't had either of those two, so I'm really only going to comment this. This actually was a nice gift from my wife for Valentine's Day back in February, and so I've enjoyed it a few times, and I wanted to share my thoughts. So this bottle takes a little bit of explaining, I would say. So Glenfiddich is Speyside, and they worked with a Speyside beer maker who created, I think, a few different IPA beers, and then him and Brian, the name's going to escape me, the master at Glenfiddich. Why is his name Kinsman? Anyways, Brian Kinsman. They talked about what would work best, and so what they did is they brewed some beer, picked the beer they liked, and then they, Glenfiddich would have aged their scotch, emptied those barrels. So the barrels had already aged. They started as ex-bourbon, but they had aged scotch. They're emptied. Then they're filled with beer. And then they put the beer in, I think at one point I read, environmentally controlled containers. Turns out they're like shipping containers. And they aged the beer in those casks then for about a month, 4 weeks. Then they, took the beer out, bottled the beer. That would be beer I would love to have, just to see how does that taste. But anyways, then they took, they don't specify which whiskey. I wish they would have. I wish they would have said, oh, we took our 12-year-old, put it back in or whatever. But they took aged Glenfiddich scotch and put it in that seasoned casks and aged it for another 12 weeks or 3 months. And then this is the result. This is the bottle. It doesn't say on here that it is unchill filtered or non-colored, and I really wish it would say those things. I've seen other people talk about it and say that it is both unchill filtered and uncolored, but it's bottled at 43%, and that's right on that cusp of whether they've filtered it or not. So I can't say, but I can say it's bottled at 43%. It is the first of the Glenfiddich experimental series. They don't give an age stamp, and it comes out of seasoned IPA casks. So let's talk about it. So the nose, sorry. If you've been drinking scotch or you're in the scotch neighborhood, this is a nice nose. It's got citrus is, I think, pretty quick. There's some fruits, orchard, crisp. A little bit of green apple, maybe more pear. Maybe sweeter. So maybe off from pear even into more like a pineapple. But not immediately. Immediately for me, citrus, a little vanilla actually. Is there a floral note? Maybe. Now, I like beer, and I like IPA beer. And I like IPAs that are quite hoppy, and by that I mean are fairly bitter. That is not this nose. The nose on this Scotch is relatively gentle, reasonably approachable. I think fairly nice. Okay? So not bitter, that's what you're thinking. Let's give it a taste. Sweet. Yep. Add to a little bit of that fruity apple or pear. Almost a banana sweetness. That kind of fruit sweetness. Gently coating. Actually, vanilla, pretty good. Pretty strong. Did I say sweet? Pretty sweet for a Scotch. For a Speyside. Wood notes aren't strong here. A little bit on the finish, a little bit on the edge. So, again, hop, well, maybe toward the floral, maybe in its sweet character. Sorry, just perhaps on the end, the way it's crisp and drying and clean, might be a little bit like that hoppy beer. So again, it's in the echoes or the finish. I know when I first had this, I was expecting, I've had a number of different hopped whiskeys, not necessarily IPA finished, but hopped whiskeys. And I was expecting a little more character from that than I got from this. But if I don't come to this with an expectation of what an IPA beer tastes like, so then this is like an IPA Scotch, I don't think you'd be disappointed. If you're going for that bitterness, that cut, I don't think you're going to get it. But if you're looking for a Speyside Scotch that's got a pretty welcoming nose, a good mouth feel, it's reasonably short finish, but it's sweet and I think actually quite enjoyable. Good feel in the mouth, a little bit oily, and the 43 helps carry the flavor. So I like this Scotch. If I'm just considering the Glenfiddich, the first experiment, I would say it's good. In Canada, it really ranges in price. I've seen it, I think because it's been out for a little while, that every now and then it's on a very good promotion. But it sits on the shelf somewhere around the 60 mark, 60 to 65 here in Alberta in Canada. So it makes it a bit of a reach. Is it worth it at that reach? Well, I'm not sure. I think it's nice. If you drink a fair amount of Glenfiddich, then I think you should drink all the experimental series. I haven't had them all in bottles. I've tasted them. I don't know. I would say this is, 3.5 on the edge of 4 stars out of my 5-star rating. I know coming into this review, I was thinking, it's 3.5. It's kind of average, but I do actually like it. 3.5. Okay, now, long-term viewers, no, I'm trying to clean up my shelves and I'm trying to review whiskeys that I have open. And this is something that I've had open and haven't talked to you about it. So I wanted to start with that. However, as I was drinking this, I thought I can't not have... I wanted to see for myself, because in my memory, I would say certain things about how it tastes related to Glenfiddich 12. But I didn't have an open bottle, so even though I'm trying to reduce the number of bottles I have opened, I just cracked this open. So I cracked this open just today. So this is not a review of Glenfiddich 12. But I wanted to just sort of see, well, how does my mind today pick up notes? So this nose is, how do I describe it? Tighter, sharper. In some ways it's almost fruitier, but not that creamy fruit. I'm not getting the banana. I'm not getting oily. Well, oily in the nose, that's not quite the right way. There's still a bit of a lemon note to it. And I really don't know the age. I don't know that this is older, but this is a little sharper, a little more tart, and has, to me, just a little more alcohol on it. But it's only bottled at 40%. Maybe grassy, but not really. Okay, taste it. Actually, maybe because it's a fresher bottle, opened today versus opened in February, and I didn't seal this one. Quite clean, quite fresh, quite refreshing. Actually, a scotch that you could enjoy easily at the end of a workday. That kind of clean, fresh. But coming back to this, if you're still with me, a richer nose, a few more almost spices. It's not a spicy scotch, but just almost a hint of something in there. Just a bit of almost, well, I'll just say spices. Better in the mouth in terms of the experience is longer. It's got the upfront sweetness, but it coats a bit more, and it's staying longer in the palate. Part of that probably is helped by the 43%, but it's just it lengthens it out. So I would say there is more to find here. So I guess that makes it a more complex scotch. It makes sense. It's gone through a more unique casking. Yeah, so I do actually prefer this. Now, having said that, this is 60, 65, and this is regularly on sale between 35 and, well, 45, I guess. So is it worth the additional money? If you're just a casual Scotch drinker, perhaps not. But if you're starting to, try to expand your palate, or you're looking for a few new cool things to try, I actually like the Glenfiddich IPA. I think more than most, because it's been out for a while. I know before my wife gave it to me, I'd seen a few reviews here and there, and I don't think it's universally loved, but I think it's a nice pour, and I'd be comfortable saying, this is 3.5. I don't want to give a star value to this right now on such a quick pour, but I would say, yeah, interesting. Okay, guys, thanks for coming back and checking out a review. If you like what I had to say today, thumb up the video. If not, let me know where I went wrong. And if you haven't subscribed before, go ahead and do that. And I love comments. Really, I like to hear, what you have found in the Glenfiddich IPA experiment. You can talk about Glenfiddich in general. Is this a go-to scotch for you? You could talk about the other series, but I don't have bottles of those. Only tastes, and so hopefully one day I want a bottle of each of them, just because I think it's a good journey. So we'll talk about those more later. Thanks again for joining me. You guys have a great night.